I'm non-zero sum James, your companion on this exploration of win-win games. Nash Equilibrium, the real reason you stop at a red. You're driving towards a busy intersection with the incantation in your mind, stay green, stay green, stay green. Alas, the light capriciously switches to amber and then red. You capitulate and halt. But why? I'd like to argue that you're following a strategy that is part of an equilibrium first identified by game theorist and Nobel laureate John Nash. Yes, that's the guy Russell Crowe played in A Beautiful Mind. A Nash equilibrium is a situation where a system comprised of rational agents acting independently self-balances when there is no incentive for any player to unilaterally change their strategy, given the strategies of the other players. When we say unilaterally, we mean that a player's strategy must work regardless of what the other player does. You can't say, if they do X, I'll do Y, but if they do Y, I'll do X. That's not a strategy, that's a response plan. And Nash equilibria don't allow for that kind of conditional hedging. While the traffic light system isn't a purely self-balancing equilibrium, given it's undergirded by laws, it's important to ask the question, is it the fear of the law that stops someone running a red? I would contend rather that it is the fear of screeching brakes, loud metallic impacts, the mangling of automotive bodywork, snapping of bones, rupturing of internal organs, the pain of muscle tissue rent asunder, and the howls of terror and agony that one imagines might accompany a car crash. Correspondingly, it is the understanding that the other drivers also have an interest in self-preservation that gives us the security to drive through a green light without a care in the world. And similarly, no driver has an incentive to deviate from the related strategy of driving on the designated side of the road, given the identical strategy of the other drivers. I mean, if the law to drive on one side of the road was cancelled tomorrow, would you start driving on the other side? Deviation from these shared strategies carries immediate risks for the individual and the collective, making it a clear negative-sum game, whereas maintaining the strategy is positive-sum in the short term and enables the trust necessary for driving to be feasible at all in the long term. There are other examples of Nash equilibria that don't involve laws, such as oligopolies that cooperate to keep prices high, or where people naturally form queues while waiting due to social conventions. But ultimately, these still adhere to coordinated laws. Whether an informal agreement or custom, they can be enforced in one way or another. The laws are just less clear-cut, which muddles the example somewhat. What I like about the traffic light example is that it's easy to delineate the actual self-interested motivations for each individual's behaviour from the legal motivations. And when we do so, we are also delineating the difference between a bottom-up Nash equilibrium and a purely top-down legal authority. This helps us not only to understand what a Nash equilibrium is, but what it is not. Cooperation via self-preservation. To make this idea more concrete, let's imagine two drivers at the start of their day. Each must choose a strategy that they'll stick with. Follow the road rules or ignore the road rules. Consider the payoffs over the course of a whole day. If both follow the rules, everything will flow smoothly. Safe roads, no crashes, a solid payoff of 3 each. If one follows the rules and the other doesn't, the rule follower may still get caught up in a crash, and the rule breaker, they've exposed themselves to a world of hurt, physically, legally, and financially. If both ignore the rules, disaster is almost guaranteed. It's a little difficult to see this without a payoff matrix in front of you, so I'll put some links in the description. But suffice to say, the Nash equilibrium is to follow, because if you follow, your possibilities are -100 and 3. But if you ignore the road rules, you're going to get -100 or -100. There's no good outcome for you. If we compare the payoffs for the different strategies, 3 follow the rules is better than -100 ignore the rules, and -100 follow the rules is equal to -100 ignore the rules. In this case, it's clear. No one has an incentive to unilaterally deviate from the strategy, follow the road rules. The shared fear of a high-speed tangle creates a Nash equilibrium. This is reinforced by the fact that this isn't enforced by police at every intersection. that would be unfeasible. It's maintained by mutual understanding and aligned self-interest. Daily cooperation. At this point, usually it's tempting to jump to game theory's poster child, the prisoner's dilemma. But I believe there's a problem with jumping straight to framing our daily interactions and negotiations with such an adversarial scenario, one lacking in trust that is actually quite rare in real-world applications. This is an issue I'll elaborate on very soon. But for now, there are very common situations, like road rules, where we follow Nash Equilibrium that might go unrecognized. When we look at these no-brainer situations, it reminds us how much cooperation is a part of our daily lives. Mutual benefits. Let's take another simple cooperative game. It turns out that all this driving has taken us to our local tennis court, where we're practicing, busily whacking against the wall next to another lone player. For the sake of argument, let's assume that everyone always prefers playing together over practicing alone. So we have a choice. We can continue as we are, or approach the other player and ask, "Want a game?" We have two strategy options, continue or approach, and that will be met with the other player's strategy. So each strategy has two potential outcomes. If our strategy is to continue, and the other player also continues, let's say we get a payoff of 1, continued practice, or we continue, and the other player approaches us, resulting in a game, a payoff of 2. If on the other hand our strategy is to approach, this will result in a game even if the other player has a continue strategy, a payoff of 2, or if the other also approaches, we'll get the added bonus of both approaching each other at the same time and getting a laugh along with the game. Let's say that's a payoff of 3. Again, there will be links in the description to these payoff matrices on the site, but you can probably work out that a strategy of continue either results in a payoff of 1, continued practice, or 2, a game, while an approach strategy results in a payoff of 2, a game, or 3, a sort of a fun interaction and a game. So, what's the Nash Equilibrium? Clearly the approach strategy. 2 is greater than 1, 3 is greater than 2. So, if a player has an approach strategy, there is no rational incentive to unilaterally change that strategy, no matter what the other player does. Both of these examples, road rules and tennis, are not only a Nash equilibrium, but a dominant strategy equilibrium, because it's the best strategy regardless of the other player's strategy. These situations happen all the time, and we generally don't notice them, because they are no-brainers. But Nash equilibrium is not always this clear-cut. A Nash equilibrium can be mixed, and it can also lead to non-optimal outcomes. We'll explore more complex scenarios in later episodes, when we deal with the prisoner's dilemma, stag hunt, and other classic scenarios. So, Nash equilibria aren't just about clever traps or standoffs. They're often the invisible scaffolding of everyday life. Once we notice them, we can see that cooperation, coordination, and even convention are not imposed, but emerge naturally when our interests align. But this is also not the only way to evaluate scenarios. Next, we'll be looking at Pareto efficiency, a favourite of mine, which rather than focusing on your choices and how they negatively affect you, it focuses on how your choices affect everyone. It's called costless kindness,